and
Hello, everybody. Hello, CSC. Welcome to the first episode of the weekly drop. We're back for season 13 with myself, Kigo, and Clancy hosting. You guys want to say hi?
Hello.
Hello.
And then our special guest for this first episode, Wilson CS.
What's up?
So, yeah, today we're going to talk about we're gonna do a couple of I guess specifically elite tier stuff to begin with, focusing on kind of Wilson's experience, and then past that we'll jump into some of the other big things that's happened. We have a lot to catch up with because we're starting a little late in the season. I initially wanted to start last Sunday, but Super Bowl Sunday kind of made that a little bit weird for a lot of people, and so between that and the preseason and a lot of other just shenanigans, we are starting a little late, but hopefully better late than never. I ended up actually having a lot of surprising DMs asking about the weekly drop, so I am excited to at least have it back, and I hope that other people are as well. But yeah, after some technical difficulties, we're here, we're ready. Let's get started. You guys have any questions for Wilson?
Yeah,
I guess
take this
what's
away.
what's your overall opinion on CSC so far? Because obviously it's your first season, right? Like besides anything, I'm curious just as like for anybody that is, because I feel like you can kind of captivate that.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, it's been great. In terms of expectations, like during my streams, people would recommend it and talk about it and say you should check it out, and I was like, okay. I do a lot of solo queue, a lot of grinding Premiere and Face It, so this is my first jump into kind of team-based CS, and it's a dope like casual but still fun and competitive environment to like get introduced to that type of thing. Like I've never played ESEA, and I want to, and I want to get to that next level of playing on teams and keep progressing in that fashion. But this has been super fun. And expectations wise, dude, CSC is so crazy built out and huge compared to what I thought it would be. I thought it would be like this kind of rinky dink little league that was disorganized and kind of odd, but holy shit. You get in
There's a
that
lot.
Discord and it's like, oh my God.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good way to sum it up too, because I feel like that was the same thing. Like, I mean, this is my third season now, and season 11 was the same thing when I joined it and I heard about it. Oh my God, some rinky-dink backyard fucking.
Yeah.
We're gonna throw this together and we're
Some
good to go.
backyard
And, like,
baseball type deal. Yeah, I know.
yeah, no, it's actually like the whole thing's legit. Everything's like, it's crazy how like in depth everything is. Like the whole rule book and all that. Like I've seen that for the first time, and I'm like, we got a whole rule book for a
Yeah, there's a
casual
whole-
league.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think it's a really kind of like you said too. I think it's a really good experience for kind of like you said. You're mostly a solo queue player. You enjoy just kind of doing your own thing, running around, right, and not like having to necessarily communicate as much or have people necessarily to rely on. It's just you in your own world, right? And I feel like this is a perfect experience. Like because I've never done ESEA either before I joined this, and then now this season I am doing ESEA with people that I met through CSC. Just because over time you meet more people and you kind of you form those friendships that you feel comfortable like playing with those people more and more. So yeah,
sure.
I think it's a really good experience. Like for the somebody like that's never done it before. Because like you said,
Yeah.
it's casual,
Yeah.
but it's also competitive at the same time. It's like the best. I mean, that's their slogan.
It's a different type of thinking you have to go through too in these games. That was like a stark, like I started playing combines and I was like, this is different, from
Yeah.
just straight up solo queuing. Like there are situations you have to play completely differently and in a much more optimal team-based way than how my initial reaction is based on all of my solo queue habits and
And the tendencies and the way you
protocols.
play
Tendencies.
things.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything
That's,
that
that's,
that's
that's rewiring
I'm
me.
pretty sure that's entirely the goal too. Like I think T Noodle is one of the main advocates for it, and something that I really want to do as a new GM is recreate that feeling of when you watch pro play, for example. It's like an entirely different game than what you play when you go into solo queue, and I think that's kind of what we're trying to recreate is that like that feeling like you are essentially a professional player with contracts, with seasons, the tournament, your team, and everything like that, just at your skill level, so that way it's hopefully as balanced as possible.
Totally.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's exciting to hear that, you know, especially going. I am, I think, 4 seasons in now, and even when I first joined, based off of a friend's recommendation, you know, similar experience. But I'd played in a handful of like other leagues and tournaments that also had rule books and some structure. Nothing to this in depth though, and so
No,
yeah, CSC
I think
is really cool.
I think that's what we kind of all expected whenever we joined this league, whether it's like a season ago, like me, or like 5 seasons ago, you join and you're like, oh, it's just some sort of beer league with like a handful of rules that are like
Yeah,
really
you
obvious
show
rules,
up
like
with
don't
the.
cheat, you know?
I think it was definitely my first time doing a draft type league, because everything else other than that had been you know, you bring your own team together and you show up and you like play a season or two and then you're out. And yeah, I never expected to be in CSC for as long as I have been, and you know, I hope to stay around for a lot longer as well. But
What do you think has kept you here?
that's a
It's a loaded question.
That is a
Good
loaded
though.
question,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, the people. It's genuinely just like the awesome people that I've met. One story that I feel like I've told to a lot of people that, you know, I've met within the franchise and whatnot is probably the coolest thing about CSC was the moment that I got to go to Dallas, which was my first ever esports LAN event that I ever went to. I went to IEM Dallas last year, and I got to meet up with a lot of the guys on my franchise, and I mean, it was a blast. It was the most fun I'd had in a long time. It was, you know, my first ever esports event. I'd loved it. Everything about it was perfect, and I think from then on, it was like, you know, I've been incredibly dedicated to like trying to share this whole experience that I've had for other people.
Yeah, especially as a GM now, you have the ability to like basically define somebody's experience almost to an extent, like within CSC,
Yeah.
and like
you're the
make it
leader
a
now.
good like impact as like somebody who builds the teams, and you can like work with them one on one to like help build teams around what people want and stuff like that,
Exactly.
which I think is a very big thing for keeping like people around like long term, is kind of having like not necessarily, obviously you can't have full reign at building a team because you can't just build super teams. There's caps, there's all this other stuff that come, you know what I mean, there's all these like
Oh, yeah, I
rules
know a
again
lot
that
about
come into it,
caps.
that like the caps that make the teams fair, but you can still build quote unquote super teams or whatever, you know what I mean, you can still do stuff like that, so it's definitely super cool.
Yeah, I think the player experience from season to season is kind of my main focus and goal, and I think that's kind of what it is for most GMs nowadays. Yeah, there's a topic that I want to get into that actually relates to this that I kind of didn't expect to get into so soon. I'm not sure if we should go into it though.
Us.
Might as well. I mean, unless we got
if
other
it's here,
questions.
the opportunity presents itself.
No, I want to circle back to it because I got a couple
All
more
right.
questions for Wilson. Sorry, sorry to
Yeah, no, that's fine.
you know, bring that up and then not. But yeah, Wilson. So AP, right? How are you enjoying your team so far?
The angriest of pirates. Dude, I love it. The team is great. I get along with everybody, and you know, when like competitive environments sometimes bring out, you know, some pretty shitty things in people, but the team has been stellar, man, and we've had a really fun time, and I love playing with them, pugging with them, match days, everything. So I like the culture. I like the guys. It's been great.
Awesome.
I said,
'Cause-
wait till you lose a game with Starly. Oh, he'll have you running killers up and down he'll be running laps.
Bro, he keeps us in line. We were 13. God, we were playing NA nades, and we were up by a ton, and we like just went one by one into an eco, and he ripped us a new one, and I loved it, bro. I loved it. I've
funny
never
that you
had
say
that
that to me.
experience in video games, you know, aside from toxic teammates having like it's great. It was cool.
He 2D replayed that same round with me. Me and him both watched it back. He's like, yo,
Yeah.
look what my team's just doing, bro. What are they doing? I'm like, yo, I don't know. That looks like UPS Elite to me, bro. I got Kier running up the ramp by himself. I'm like, yeah.
No, that's what it's about. You know, having somebody that you respect or somebody that, you know, you see as someone who can give you value, you know, tell you what the fuck was that? Can I cuss? Like, can I say, is that okay?
yeah. It's
Okay,
happened
I'll
before.
keep
so
You've
trying to
already
keep it-
done it. You might
I've-
as well
I'll,
keep
I'll
going.
try to keep it low.
I've never been
but-
told that we have to stop. So, but
Okay.
I kind of wanted to work backwards. From so that's your experience now, going into I guess like combines, like preseason era, right? Was there? How were your feelings when you initially got drafted by Angry Pirates, especially going like first overall in the draft?
It was cool, man. It was like seeing a live stream where you get your name called. It was like, whoa. So that was really cool. And it immediately, like when you get, I think for anybody who gets drafted, everybody gets drafted, but regardless, you get drafted by a team, you immediately have an affection and connection for that team for choosing you. So
Yeah.
off the bat, I was like, I'm an angry pirate.
Yeah, just instantly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Arr.
that's how
Quickly.
it was. Yeah, that's how it was for me last season when Aviary picked me up. I'm like, yeah, I'm a bird now. Yeah, this
Yeah,
works.
exactly.
Now I am gonna have to ask you to test your loyalty a little bit, right? Going all the way back to the actual combines. Now, was there any other franchises that you might have been interested in, or do you want to talk about any franchises that might have been interested in you, kind of reached out to you, what that was like?
Yeah, Kigo's spot, UPS, actually. I was talking to Stukers and Cloud Zeno, and we played prior to that, and I think, they were kind of thinking maybe I would go in Premier, but I ended up in Elite where, they didn't have a chance to try to draft, so, yeah, but the UPS guys are dope. And then also I played some 10-mans with you at
Yeah.
Big Slime, right? And then
Back
think
when you
one
were
other
still
spot.
fluctuating like crazy. I know you dropped down to Challenger for a sec. You started Premier,
they threw me from Premier straight into Challenger.
and then back.
Wow. All right.
Yeah, and then back to Elite.
Bro took it personally. He had to nuke some challenger players and go straight back up to elite.
Thing is, I played kind of average in Chally, and then they brought me to Elite, and then that's when I like really picked it up.
Yeah, he turned it on in elite combines.
I mean,
That's
that
kind of when it
happens.
clicked. Like I got to play differently. Like I can't play.
That
the
happens
same
for a
way I
lot
was
of people,
Yeah,
though. I think that like a lot of people start out. I think probably the best example is when I'm drafting people. There's a lot of times where someone will be like really quiet, maybe not calm as much, and then you realize like halfway through the season, as soon as they've played with that same other a handful of games, all of a sudden they're incredibly comfortable and they're calming all the time. So a lot of people just aren't there in combines because of a whole bunch of different reasons, and it can definitely make placing DEs really really difficult.
Really tough. Because like there's some people that do not open up like at all. Or like they won't talk at all in a combine game. And then you like draft them, you play with them, you hang out with them, and you're like, yeah, this guy's talking more than me. You know what I mean? Like he's just
Or
talking
even
a ton
like
now.
roles, like
Or
maybe
just
they
like, more active.
they didn't want to IGL. I know that's probably my own example of like I really liked IGLing, but I didn't feel comfortable IGLing in combines where I didn't necessarily know the players, right? And so I never really got to show off that aspect to any teams, kind of a thing. And so I
Yeah.
feel like that happens with a lot of DEs. But that kind of leads me into wanting to ask, how do you feel about like the balance of the tiers so far?
It's interesting. I think, so far, Elite's played fairly balanced and really well. I think if there's anything to look at, it's definitely Premier. And I feel like you guys would agree with that, where Premier is kind of in a weird spot where there are very few teams and it doesn't seem like people care all too much, At least that's what I've heard. That's kind of the consensus I'm getting. So, in a way, I'm low-key glad that I got an Elite because Elite feels competitive and it feels like people care a lot more. And I'll stalk like the Premier chat in CSC, and shit, it's dry. It's dry. Like there's
Yeah.
no smack talking or anything. And I'm like, that doesn't seem as fun,
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I think that's really accurate and kind of something that I can speak to, like as someone who was really interested in Premier last season as an AGM and then even this season as AGM. It's a very different culture than I think the rest of the tiers in terms of I guess especially with the schedule change that they've done now where they have double headers on just Monday compared to the rest of the league doing games on Tuesday, Thursday night. more than ever, Premier is just kind of like a, place for IM plus teams in ESEA to come and do extra games or extra stuff, and it's, maybe not their first priority, but still be able to be involved in CSC. And I think for that reason, it's like you don't have as much active practice or pugging, or they're a little bit more dedicated to maybe their ESCA team than they are the actual CSC team. So
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
I think if you weren't already in ESCA, I think going into Elite is being dropped into Elite rather than being in Premier, especially if you wanted that competitive experience, is definitely a big blessing.
Better way to go, yeah.
But man, there was a topic. I don't remember who brought it up. I don't remember this was actually a SSD topic, and this is kind of one of the things that I wanted to get into later, was specifically diving into an SSD or serious suggestions discussions. I have a whole bit for it later, but a topic that involved having tier max players be able to jump between tiers. Maybe this isn't something that we will dive really deep into, but I am curious if you have any thoughts, maybe some of the more long-standing players, Kigo, Clancy, about a player, say like a 900 MMR is the tier line for Premier, right? And so if you were a 900 MMR player, or like say 910, and you were in Premier, do you think that player should have the option to be able to play in Elite as a tier max? Because in Premier you have tier breakers, you have super max players, you have someone like, for example, on my franchise, Ween, who is tier max technically in Premier is 1500, and he's like 1540 MMR. Right, and so he's more than the actual cap. Essentially, if there was a tier above Premier, he would be in that tier. And so for maybe these 900 slightly above players, should they be allowed to play in Elite as a tier max and basically count that penalty towards the max MMR, or I don't know. I think it was just an idea of breaking the tier lines and allowing people to kind of fluctuate based off their MMR.
You're saying like just the 900 MMR players?
I think it would apply to all tiers.
I feel like it would be like.
I mean, I think
like
Premier,
the top 5, top 10 players.
Yeah, I think Premier probably makes the most sense to like
higher.
allow maybe, because also other way around, Elite players who are maybe 890, right, 880 MMR, who are on ESCA teams and want to play in CSC, but can't make, like for instance, Jack on our Premier team. He was an Elite player who can play at Premier level just fine, and we signed him as a tier min Premier player. We had to promote him up, but maybe giving that making that more of an open option, allowing players to kind of jump.
I feel like it could be fine. I feel like, because like you could have the argument, because like the argument would be like if you go down, like if you put quote unquote a Premier player down to Elite, okay, well they're going to be significantly better, at least in theory they should be significantly better than like if you look at the bottom of Elite, like. But it depends, because then you look like, well, I'm at the bottom of Elite in terms of MMR wise. I'm literally the lowest, like 620, I think it is, or whatever. I'm like the lowest MMR I could be in Elite. So it's like, okay, well, so as me as a tier min player, can I compete with somebody who's technically a Premier player? But I mean, in theory, if it goes against the MMR cap, well, what does it matter? Because if they now are worth that much ELO or that much MMR, well, now they have to sign the lower tier players. So if their lower tier players are that much worse, then, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like it could be acceptable to an extent. Because as long as it's obviously like there's a way that it's working against the MMR, but it's still possible. In terms of, okay, well, yeah, you could sign this 930 MMR player in Elite, but then now there needs to be some sort of penalty. You know what I mean? Or you can't like sign that guy and then like 2 other like tier max players with him, kind of deal. You know what I'm saying? Like there has to be something to go against it. Otherwise, I feel like it could be fine though. I don't know. So far in Elite, I don't feel like there's any difference. I mean, I played in Chally last season, and like. Like I said, I've said this multiple times, starting from Contender in Season 11, going to Chally last season and winning it, and then going into Elite this season and being 3-0 right now. I swear on everything I know and love, Contender was the most competitive tier. As you go down in CSC, the tiers become more and more competitive, or in terms of they care more. Because you look at the Contender players, the recruit players, the prospect players, most of them want to get better. I mean, not all of them. Obviously, there's some people that are fine with being where they're at, and they just play for the game for fun. But like the lower you go in tiers, more and more people actually care or are trying to get better, or I've had so many people reach out like, hey, can you demo review one of my games? Like, can you help me fix like little mistakes that I'm making that would just like the simplest of things that will make them 10 times the player, just because they're not doing these little mistakes are consistently getting them killed. Where like you get like most of the higher tier players, like we said, Premier. What do? Most of them show up on their match days. They pug. They don't ever play with their CSC team. And then you never see them, right? Premier chat. They talk on that Monday. They'll talk some trash before the games. There will be cobwebs in that channel until the next Monday, right? Where like you look at elite chat, you look at contender. The 3 lower tiers, those tier chats are always yapping. You know what I mean? Always. Chally and below, there's always people talking. They're trying to replace me and Chally with Zim and who knows what else. They got these Chally players idolizing me. But I don't know. I think it'd be cool if there was a way to do that, because I think Premier's in a weird spot where you do have some of the like the tier max or the tier min players that like kind of get screwed, right? Because like there's only so many teams, but then at the same time there's like not enough players. But you could argue the same thing with like any other tier. Like how many tier max players in Chally don't get to play because they just simply can't afford them. You know what I mean? A team can't afford them for what they're worth, or they don't think they should be valued at that. So I think it's really hard, because I think there were a lot of players last season that kind of got screwed by that, where like no offense or like no flame to anybody, but there were some players that were like tier max that I'm like, why is this person tier max? Like there's just zero reason there should be. And multiple people agreed that they should not be tier max. Everybody in the tiers like, yo, why is this guy tier max? And then he goes and he's FA the whole season because no team like can afford to sign them and then sign a team when like they're just not deserving of tier max, if that makes sense.
For some context, for me and anybody who's watching who doesn't know, could you give like a really brief description of how MMR is calculated and how that plays into what skill level you play at?
So,
Like how do you get placed, or?
Well, the specific, I know within tiers, there's different MMRs, right? So you have to have a team with a certain max amount of MMR, so it has to be, evenly spread out team of skill.
Yeah,
level.
I mean the MMR system itself, the actual formula, it's unknown. Like it's a secret in terms of like what exactly they're entirely calculating it off of. Essentially, though,
they don't want people gaming the system.
Yeah.
Essentially, though, and I'm kind of hesitant to talk on it a bit because a lot of this could be rumor, and I do know that they're very against the spreading of like misinformation when it comes to, because somebody will say something about like maybe the KAST scoreline is like the top priority for your MMR, and then you'll see someone in numbers come in like, that's just wrong, please don't say that kind of thing. And so I don't want to contribute to any misinformation, but I do like anecdotally can tell that new players have very fluid MMR, whereas like returning players typically don't. Their MMR is a little bit more static. And so I would assume that, kind of performance within the season is
always weighted more heavily than literally anything else. Your face level, how many kills you average, your headshot percentage, any other statistic you could pull out from like your face it, your ESEA games, any Premier matches, it doesn't even matter. They will always weigh your like previous seasons. Like season 11, I was in contender. We were like what, Kono 6-5. I played with Kono that season. We were 6-5. We lost in the first round of playoffs, whatever, right? And we were like an average team. I was a very average player at best. In the off season, I went to face it level 9. I went from like level 4 to 9. I grinded. I went crazy. Jeez. And they left me in contender, and everybody was freaking out because they're like, "Yo, why is this level 9 in contender?" Like, because there's no other level 9s in contender. They're like, "What the hell are they doing?" And then I played combines, and I absolutely curb stomped everybody, and they immediately moved me to Chally. But it was one of those things where it's like, had I not played combines, at the time returning players didn't have to play. So like, had I just not played combines, would they have left me in contender? And then I would have just been like basically a tier breaker in essence of the MMR. Because like after
you're
numbers
locked,
lock,
you won't get moved. But yeah,
they don't move you.
To kind of wrap back around though, for returning players, I'm pretty sure it's just a wide sweep of like whenever you come in, your face it that you're required to have those games, your stats in there, the combines that you play, right? As soon as you start playing any as a brand new player, those stats. I don't know if they even look at Steam. I'm not entirely sure, but essentially they have some way to initially place you, and then afterwards your MMR adjusts based off of, performance within
Performance and
games
whatnot.
and such.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I'm pretty sure it goes off of face at first, and then once you start getting combines, that starts
they
getting
start to
weighed
that
heavier.
and so yeah, that MMR is what determines your like value as a player, your cost, I guess, your salary, as I've heard some people put it, and essentially
Yeah.
every tier is required to fit their team within a certain salary cap, an MMR cap.
Yeah.
And so that way you try and keep as much balance as possible. You avoid having a bunch of superstar players all on one team, and then you avoid, that's where the tier lines are drawn, so that way you can, then separate out each tier. But yeah, the MMR
Gotcha.
system is a mystery.
It is,
outside
yeah,
of that.
for the most part.
But I know that oh yeah, the power rankings. I was gonna pull up the elite power rankings and give you guys a specifically, I guess,
Ooh.
Wilson a chance to kind of look into that and talk about maybe, are there any players that you or names you might have recognized from combines, from tier chats, people talking, people that might have stood out to you that on certain teams that what are your opinions, I guess, on the
That's
power
just
rankings
standings.
and yeah, or standings,
rankings.
Sorry, not power rankings, standings. The current standing. We don't have power rankings yet. I don't know why I keep calling them out.
Standings, so like team standings we're
Recruit
talking.
has
Yeah.
power rankings.
Recruit
Okay,
has
whoa.
some recruit power rankings, but
Looking at them, AP on top, right? We're looking down on everybody. So
Yeah.
from a top-down perspective, I am intimidated by UPS. It's a team of guys that have played together, right? They played last season and you pug together a lot, so I think that is a huge advantage. I played with these booty hunters for 3 match days and then like a few pug sessions, and so that experience of playing together I think is huge. But we're still gonna win on Tuesday. And then we got
You might have
Mauling
to
Wizards
convince
look
you
solid.
might have to convince Starly to not G check us on Ancient then, because if he G checks us on Ancient, oh, it's GG.
Bro, we might be going OP and taking that. Other than that, man, I'm shocked by how bad NA Nades is. Random shade,
Yeah.
but
Jesus.
I
Wait,
think
I
we're
watched
gonna
their
have
what
to-
about them?
Stemmer review against Gloop Troop, and my God. Okay, no more toxic.
It's not bad. I haven't actually
Moving
seen it
on.
their play.
No, that's not that bad.
Moving on.
I mean, they do got blitzers, so I mean, it might be that bad. It just might be.
Oof.
It's just team play. Like, I'm sure as individuals, they're good players. It's just they play like they don't
just
talk
don't
to each
mesh.
other.
Yeah, they just don't
they
mesh
don't
well.
mesh at all.
That
Yeah.
happens.
But individually, I'm sure they're good players, man. But Starly actually pointed out Ribeye Rippers. They're 1-2 on the season, but their round differential is real close, and apparently they got some fraggers on that team. So we're looking at that. In terms of individual players, Deluxe, definitely looking at him. He has had 3 games of just kills after kills after kills, but maybe he doesn't play overpass and then he doesn't get as many kills. So who knows? UPS is yet to be tested on a non-overpass map.
Yeah, I don't know. They keep putting us there, so we'll keep taking it.
That's what. Yeah, you can only play the map you're given.
Because I was gonna say we didn't even pick it. We only picked it once. The other 2 times the enemies picked against us, I'm like, hey, I'll take it.
Yeah. And then who is it? Citron. And
Yeah.
I think he's on Walling Wizards, isn't he?
Yeah, H4K.
He's-
Yeah.
Gaming, bro. And I think he's played 3 different maps too. So he's got everything in his pocket.
Yeah, I know another standout player too is kind of Austin from Gloop Troop. I know he's.
Definitely.
I mean, I know we just beat Gloop Troop, but I know he's been somebody who's been lighting up Elite. Kind of the same situation as like Citron, just like going nuts. So
Yeah, even
sure.
on a 1 and 2 record, yeah, he's still got a really insane rating, and I'm really excited for us. I'm excited that we got him because he was actually one of our later round picks too, one of those kind of under the radar type players, and so it's really cool whenever we're able to kind of snag a couple of those.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I think
Yeah.
Elite's shaping up nice. I think there's like we said though, there's a couple of surprising teams like Cow being 1 and 2 and whatnot. I mean, there's a couple of teams that I expected to be towards the bottom or kind of that middle bottom of the pack. I know like Wilson said Tuesday we have the two number 1 and 2 teams, UPS versus AP, so that'll be exciting for Tuesday. But yeah, no, I don't know. I think there's a lot of like really competitive teams. Like just aim wise though, that's the only sad thing about Elite compared to like Charlie when I played last season, is I think Elite's like a slightly better version of Premier, where it's a lot of people that are like really good, but they don't pug a lot or they don't play the game a lot. They show up on their match days, they pug it out, kind of like what we see with like Nan and some of the other teams that just simply just don't play a lot. And you can see it when you watch them. Like they just like you said, it looks like 5 guys just running around playing a solo queue pug, and it's like then you play against a team like Starly, who will have you guys on a leash and wants you guys playing a certain way, or like UPS, like the way that you know what I mean. The teams at the top, the way they're playing together, you can see it.
Oh, I didn't even
Well, I
realize
think-
either. Dude, Citron, sorry to interrupt. Citron wasn't drafted until the 4th round by H4K. He
What a
was
steal.
also late round pickup,
Yeah.
Oh
much
my
later than even
goodness.
Austin. And yeah, I mean he's leading the tier in stats currently after off of the 3 match days, not including Curie with his 2.0 rating off of 1 match day. I know that was something else we planned on talking about at some point.
Yeah, super PFA.
Hmm.
Yeah. No, I mean, I know that we could probably transition into that. I know Elite too with some of the FAs. Like, there's been a ton of teams that have been playing with subs. I know we had like HG had the issue with FCL just ghosting the team basically.
Was that on
as far as I'm aware.
HG or ATL? No,
That was HG.
okay.
ATL basically. So ATL also had a last second sub this last match day because they just miscommunication between the teams or whatever. I think it was a 4v5, right? That game as well. They had a miscommunication that somebody was supposed to be there and then they just weren't, and so they couldn't get a sub in time. So they played a 4v5, which gave DRG their first win. Shout out DRG. And then yeah, you have HG where FCL played their first 3 preseason games and just ghosted them. They haven't heard from him. Nobody's seen him, and so they've been playing with subs all 3 of their match days. And then you get, like you said, you had Kiri, which Kiri.
Yeah, that was on that 3rd
Should've
match
been-
day. I kind of looked into that match a little bit. That was against Sav, who also had to pull in
Yeah.
a sub. And yeah, I think that was a game that they were looking to win, except for the fact that Kiri decided to just drop like, was it 30 kills?
Yeah, they went I think 33 and 13 with a
33 and
2-0
13.
rating. Yeah, so you have like super subs. I know like Way also had like a 1.26 PFA sub game. King had a 1.12. Like it's like boom or bust though with the free agents, because then you go to the other like side of the free agents and it's like 0.59, 0.6, 0.7. Like so they're either way up here or they are way down here, and there's like no in between. So I don't know. I think it's crazy to see how many people have already had to sub, and that's why I think it's a big thing with CSC, and that's like one of the like big things that I try to promote to people when people ask me about it, is the fact of like, even if you get cut originally from like the team you get drafted on, whether it be through preseason, halfway through the season, after the first match day, there's always an opportunity to play. You know what I mean? Or get back into the season, like be picked up. I mean, because you can be picked up till what is it, match day 8, I think, or 7?
I think
It's something like that. It's super late into the season. And you can always be picked up like to join a team for a potential playoff run, et cetera, et cetera. So I know that's.
I think
another
those are
really cool thing.
honestly, from my experience, even those are some of the teams that find a lot of success in
that
playoffs.
do the best is when they make a change like midway through the season sometimes, whether it's because they're not, either their season isn't going how they want it to go and they need to completely make a change, or it's there's that piece out there that if we go grab that, we're the best team, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and you see a ton of that.
hmm A lot happening, at least from my perspective as a GM. A lot of that's happening really early on in the season, which is kind of
Yeah.
unfortunate for me. You know, trying to grab and make trades. It feels pretty early on, but shout out to our pickup in Becco and Premier, probably the most outside of the house pickup that happened in Contender that exact same day. I think it was
Yeah.
probably one of the biggest trades that happened recently.
Joel UPS future legend. GG.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm trying to think. Did we still want to talk about Elite, or do we want to? Oh wait, I'm on the wrong page.
Yeah, I think that covers, unless Wilson, you have any other comments or teams that you maybe have some thoughts on.
No, man, that's kind of it for Elite. Yeah.
In that case, I guess we can go ahead and go on to the. I know we kind of talked a little bit about the tier breaker stuff and whatnot. I don't think that was ever actually a SSD discussion, but I kind of wanted to. So I made a little segment that I want to bring on each week called, and I have a little. Let me see if I can play this without completely messing and breaking everything up. But we have the new. Here we go. Is it working? No? Okay, never mind. TLDR of SSD, now called SS. Essentially, there was a channel long ago in CSC called Serious Suggestions Discussions, otherwise shortened to SSD. It has now since been reformed and turned into the new and improved Serious Suggestions thread channel, where essentially anyone in the server is able to create a thread and, you know, suggest a change to the server, to a system in place, a rule, etc., etc., and anyone is able to then, you know, either show support for it, talk about it, discuss. It's been known to be a little bit of a interesting place.
I still want my e-dating channel. I won't
There has been some
that.
questionable serious suggestions, you know, questionable in the sense were they serious or not. There have been there's been lots of drama and, you know, issues that have come out of suggestions every so often. But regardless, I think that there are some good points that get brought up season to season that I want to go back and revisit, or, you know, maybe talk about on here. From at least, you know, I can present it to you, our guest Wilson, kind of see if you have any thoughts on it, as well as Kigo and Clancy, and kind of just play moderator for a little bit. And so most recently, one that happened and kind of blew up was, and something that's every season, I even unknowingly started it, I think for 2 seasons ago or last season, but changing the keeper limit. So as it stands
That's
right
the one
now,
I'm highlighting right now.
yeah. I mean, it's got like 400 messages in it right now. But
oh my god.
as it stands right now, the keeper limit is set to 4, meaning that whenever we go into the draft, franchises cannot have more than 4 players already, you know, on their team, you know, going into preseason. Previously it was set to 5, and now there's been discussion about moving it towards 3. So, you know, kind of the TLDR, because I went through and read the whole discussion. The initial part that we'll talk about here is the majority of people seem to be in favor of it, which is a little bit different, surprisingly, than I think some of the reaction initially for it. But as it stands right now, the post was made specifically stating that, you know, there is as a suggestion of changing the keeper limit to 3. And the majority of people are in favor of it. What are y'all's thoughts, or any questions that you have?
On changing the keeper limits?
Yeah, from 4 to 3.
Keeper limit from 4
Is this
to
so
3.
like if a team, you know, has 5 from the previous season, the keeper limit is how many of those 5 they can reserve
They
on
can
the
Basically, how
Yeah,
many of those
they
you can
can
keep or how
reserve.
many you can sign even.
Yes.
So like, for example, you could only keep 3 of your 5 from last season, and then you could sign an FA before the draft, like somebody else was on another team that got released. And then you could go into the draft with 4. Like, for example, that's what UPS did. We promoted our Chally core. Well, we got promoted. So we kept the 4 of us, and then we just drafted Deluxe.
Yeah, I think
Where
what
like, so they're
makes
arguing
yeah,
against that.
Yeah, what kind of makes it interesting is when you throw in that FA equation, and then when you also throw in promoted players. The easy way of looking at it is, yeah, essentially how many people from last season on the team can you keep going into the draft for next season, right? But as soon as you introduce that, like, some players get promoted. So say maybe your elite team, Wilson, maybe you guys go, you win the chip, you know, rah, or even your challenger team does as well. And
Let's go.
all of you guys are super hype, ready to play CSC next season. And no rules are changed. Only 4 of you guys could stay. If all of you became returning members, one of you would have to get cut from that roster. There's a
Oh,
chance
okay.
that
Mhm.
after that player got cut, so we'll just use Starly in this example because
Sorry, Starly.
yeah, sorry, Starly. Starly gets cut. There's a chance that he would go back into the draft. He would become an FA, so he could get picked up by another team. But if no team picked him up and he went back in the draft, you guys could draft him again, right?
If there wasn't a keeper limit, wouldn't MMR changes affect how you could build your team out? So if your team wins, the whole thing last season, that's no doubt going to have an effect on everybody's MMR on that team, and you're most likely going to be beyond the cap, and we'll have to make a change anyways.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's where as
MMR
well as
changes are still valid.
typically you don't
for
really
that.
have this issue that I just was talking about because of either changes in MMR or players not returning. But then you also introduce, maybe your challenger team also won, and so some of them got boosted in MMR, and now they're on your elite team in your elite roster.
And the other argument too is like
Mhm.
you're obviously not everybody can win the championship. So like let's say you're a middle of the pack team. Let's say you end the season. I don't know how many games are we playing elite 10. Let's say you end 5-5 for example. You guys are middle of like the tier. And so most of your MMRs are, let's say, stay relatively the same. You're all middle of the pack players. None of you are like outshining anybody kind of deal, and like you stay where you are. Now all of a sudden you have the 5 of you, and then let's say your Charlie team goes and wins. Now you have, let's say, 3 of them get promoted to elite. Now you potentially have 8 players on your elite team, and they have to cut them down to, if they changed it to 3, it'd have to be cut down to 3, or as of it is right now, you'd have to cut it down to 4. So you're cutting 4 players essentially.
Yeah.
And
From my very limited experience, one thing that I like is like kind of team loyalty and like building up your thing with your team. So like in my mind, like next season, I hope I'm with AP, or you get what I mean? Because that's more
Yeah,
fun in my
yeah.
mind than jumping from team to team and having that affiliation like mean a bit less. So
Especially if you
from
have
my
like a good connection.
Totally,
Mhm.
yeah. With the GMs, AGMs, with your captain, whatever it be. So I feel like I don't know. I'd be pro no keeper limit or something drastic like
Yeah,
that.
So-
because like
Yeah.
it used to be. It
This,
used
I
to
don't
be
know
5.
much about the
It
situation.
used to
Yeah,
be
yeah.
5, where you could just
Yeah,
keep your whole
it's-
5-man core and like your whole roster, and then they changed it to 4 because they had an issue with too many teams were keeping like a full team of players and like not even drafting anybody, or if they
Yeah,
did
so
draft people.
I hope to be
They
able to
just
play
don't.
like kind of moderator here and speak on behalf of like SSD and some of the messages that I read,
Totally.
because I think that was probably one of the main arguments in the past, and something that I also, as well as some of the other GMs that I had talked to, agreed with, of building that sense of community. Right? If I have to cut players, it feels like it chips away from like this large community of like specifically Big Slime that I have built, and that kind of sucks. But at the same time, I think one of the big things that has like caused a lot of people to shift opinion is the idea that there's just a lot of unhappy DEs that feel and run into issues where they get drafted by a franchise that just effectively tells them, hey, we already essentially know what our roster is going to be, right? Or say they had 7 picks in the draft, right? And 4 of them were used on keepers. They used all 4, the max 4 on keepers, and there's these 3 DEs that they had to draft, and they go into preseason being told that, hey, all 3 of you guys are fighting essentially for this one spot. And so it kind of takes away from that new player feel. I think one of the other main things that was
Yeah.
brought up in this most recent one was specifically the bias towards returning players. There's a lot of bias when it comes to you've seen how FAs play, you've seen all the returning
known
players.
commodity versus somebody that could be anything. You have previous data on seasons of players versus some guy who pug stomped in combines like me.
Yeah, DEs are very risky, and as someone who's trying to build a team, a lot of times you'll hold some of that bias towards potentially players that you've seen a little bit more of. And so I think the main goal for lowering the keeper limit is to continue to promote bringing in DEs and improving that experience as a new player and giving them more of a fair shot, because I think the consensus of people who are trying to lower it is that although, yes, in theory, everyone gets a fair shot, if franchises are run well and everyone is doing the right things, so to speak, it's not always that way. And I think that there are some people who end up leaving the league because of it, because it doesn't feel like they got their fair shot. So I'm not sure if that's
JPET said maybe more teams, and I wanted to know what you thought about that.
Of having more
Dear God, please,
teams.
no more teams.
More
Franchises,
teams.
Just too
no
much
more
bloat, you
teams.
think? Less identity
Well,
and just too many.
Oh, I think it's not even about an identity. I think that there's not enough players as it is, like in some of the tiers. Like Recruit has 7 FAs amongst all the teams,
Yeah.
and for some
Yeah,
reason this
we
season
can't
we
even-
added this season we added 2 new franchises. So we added 2 recruit teams, 2 prospect teams, and 2 contender teams. But then now we had a shortage of premier players, so we had to cut off 2 premier teams. So we went from 8 to 6, and like we added these new teams, and now there's not enough players. Because now the argument is, well, we should just shift. Can we just shift part of the lines up to like help Premier, for example? Shift, the top X amount from Elite up to Premier and etc. from the rest of the tiers. Well, then you look at it. Well, we can't shift anybody up from Recruit. There is nobody in Recruit.
Yeah.
And same with I think one of the other tiers too is Elite too.
I feel
is
like
relatively
Elite was
smaller
pretty
pool.
dry.
It usually
initially.
is.
But yeah, and I mean, and it doesn't help that a lot of these issues or a lot of the topics that I think are talked about in CSC kind of play into each other. So such as like, the more teams topic. I think that's one that I've also, have pretty strong opinions that I feel like there's too many franchises, or, I'm scared of there becoming too many. And I mean, 20 franchises is a lot. That's
Hard
20
to keep
different
up
teams in contender. Like, as someone who tries to do predictions on every single match for all match days,
Yeah.
that's a lot of predictions that I have to write.
Yeah, man.
I think last time, because I was specifically asked to write a quick little note beside each one. I was like, oh yeah, I can just write a quick sentence. This won't take long. 2 hours later.
Yeah, and it took forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think I don't necessarily. I think the better way, like if we were gonna limit tiers, like teams more on how many you could keep, I think it'd be fine if you lowered it. But instead of like a per tier, you do like a franchise. The only unfortunate thing is it somewhat does favor the franchises that have more tiers, right? Like if you do, okay, you can have 3 keepers per tier, but if you want to use 4 keepers in your elite team, then you lose one in one of the other tiers.
This was
You know what I'm
actually
saying?
the exact thing that I had brought up. I saw some people talking
Yeah,
about it in the new
multiple
one.
people mentioned
But yeah,
it.
when I initially brought up the keeper rule, this is the way that I had brought it up of like, just because I wanted some initial discussion on it. It was my first ever SSD post that I made. But I was like, what would happen if you did like kind of like a hard cap across all tiers? So if you had 5 tiers, 5 teams, right, rather than having the current 4 keepers at max in each tier, so a total of 20, instead you would have a total of 15, but you could use maybe 4 in one, 2 in another,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, and just kind of balance it out depending on where you want to put more priority towards, or if you have a team where you had 4 people promote and you want to keep that core together, okay, use 4 of your keepers to keep that team and that core together, but then you lose one in your recruit team, or whatever, wherever you want to sacrifice that extra keeper.
Yeah, and I know initially there was a lot of pushback to that idea when I had first brought it up.
Yeah,
I think
I don't know. I feel like it's touchy because, like, I mean, you get like the arguments of like, I know Hawkish was somebody from AVI. I know even like Noodle said a couple things from UPS, and there were a couple other franchises that said more along the lines of they like to kind of like what you said, Kono, is they want to build a community. If they want the option
Yeah.
to be able to keep these quote unquote franchise players, around, it's kind of like Deluxe, for example, for UPS. He's been somebody that's been on UPS for, I think this is his 7th season now on UPS.
Mhm.
And it's like it killed him that he had to let him go into the draft, and obviously we ended up liking him when we plugged with him, so we redrafted him back because we wanted him. But it's one of those things where it's like, because at the same time he wanted to keep all 4 of us Chally players because we just won the trophy. So it's like the perfect situation of like, we want to keep this franchise player and we want to keep this around, but we physically can't.
And I think on that topic, I think I found a really good quote in there or statement from Fart, the GM of Gas. Great name. But he was kind of in favor of, I think, going towards the 3 keeper. But obviously as a GM, he basically had this to say. He said, I love building rosters and communities, and keeping players season over season is what creates communities. But we also really need to look at balancing that with making the league accessible to new players. And so I think that's kind of, where the majority of people kind of stand, of like, both being in favor of 3, but also wanting to try and keep that sense of community. It's a tough thing to try and balance, and I think that's why there hasn't been necessarily a response from admins or, an immediate change. It's one of those things that like there's definitely benefits I think to having 3, and I think that's what a lot of people discussed in the SSD. You know, maybe not so politely, but in the end, I think for the most part, it was understood that like yes, there's benefits for DEs whenever you have less keepers, but also at the same time you are somewhat taking away from that community building aspect, that ability to carry players on season after season. So
Well, and I feel like the thing is, like, I wouldn't even be opposed to 3 keepers. I don't even think 3 keepers would be the end of the world, right? Because, like, I seen a couple of the GMs, like I said, that were talking about, well, I want to keep my core. Well, the thing is like, pro scene, they consider 3 a core. So, like,
Yeah.
it wouldn't even be, like, crazy to say, okay, 3 is the core now. 3 is what you get to keep, and that's it. But, like, the thing is, like, to me, I don't even know if that necessarily, I mean, it does to an extent help DEs, but, like, we drafted Deluxe, what, 3rd overall? We didn't care. That was our guy. You know what I mean? We didn't even look at a single other DE because we didn't care. And you can say that's just from our franchise personally, because I can't obviously speak for every franchise because I don't know what other franchises did or do or continue to look at. But I know, like, from our POV, that's like we didn't even care about a single DE. We were like, if we don't get the #1 overall pick, we're not getting Wilson, and I could care less about any other DE. Just because I didn't, that's just my honest opinion about all the other DEs in Elite this season. Not a single one of them stood out to me. So I was like, let's take the known commodity of Deluxe, who's been around. I think he's the all-time kill leader in CSC because he's been around for a long time now. Like, I take him, you know what I mean? Like, I don't care about anybody else.
yeah.
So I think to an extent, like, yeah, it does help DEs because essentially there are more slots, there are more opportunities, but you will get still a lot of the franchises that, well, they don't care. They'll use their 1st-round pick on this guy because this is the person that they like, or this is the person that they've had before, and they're just going to take them and, you know, keep that same
Yeah.
team, essentially.
Mm-hmm. And so,
Yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, agree with that, and it seems pretty feasible if you have a solid 5 and you want to keep that exact 5 to find a way to get him back through the draft, right? If you kind of identify the 2 maybe poorest performers in terms of their compared to the MMR, and
Yeah.
they would typically be low draft picks or mid round.
You can reach for them and take them, you know, second
take 'em
round
first
or whatever.
second if you really want them.
Exactly, and I seen other teams that did the same thing, like other than us. Like there were other teams that redrafted the same people where they dropped them because they couldn't keep all 5, you know, but they liked the vibes of the team last season, whether they did good or not. They didn't care. They wanted to keep these 5 together because they meshed well together. They had fun playing together. Because that's the other thing about CSC is there's a lot of tiers that like, or a lot of franchises that there's like half that really want to win and want to get better, and the players want to get better, and then there's, I'd say, another half or another side of like CSC where they don't care. It's good vibes. They're there. They're not necessarily there to win, but they just want to have fun and they want to have good teams, like no toxicity, and like build a community. You know.
Mm-hmm.
So there's kind of both sides of it.
It's kind of, yeah, there's both parts of it. I wouldn't be opposed to 3. I know it's a little hypocritical for me because my team is consisted of 4 keepers. And we would not gotten our 4 without the 4 keeper rule. But I think for the balance of power for DEs to sort of earn their spot, and give them an opportunity. Plus, the DEs that come in, they become part of the community once they get in. You know,
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think that like I kind of had a similar situation to Kigo's, not exactly the way that we had planned on it unfolding, but honestly, I'm really happy with the results in terms of like, you know, having a team full of a bunch of guys who maybe weren't all on the same team before, but like, you know, knew each other relatively well and wanted to put together a team of, you know, homies, get the homies together.
Yeah,
but
get the homeboys.
At the same time, within the same franchise, I had another team that basically was all DEs and a couple of, you know, FAs that we had signed and picked up. It's like, you know, in one realm, in one tier, I have I'm giving a ton of different people a new shot, whereas in another tier, maybe I didn't really get to give a bunch of DEs a good look at because we had already kind of decided, yeah, it's definitely interesting. And I think there's a lot of other things that kind of were talked about, especially a lot of numbers and statistics that I don't really feel comfortable pulling up because I didn't really get to like fact checked. But I would highly implore, going and checking out that thread. There's a lot of good opinions and points, and I think, people on both sides of the equation. I will say that, for personally, I probably am slightly more in favor of, or I've been pushed, I guess, whereas before I really enjoyed that big slime community that I initially was brought into and really wanted to keep that 4-keeper limit. Have kind of, been swayed more over towards maybe not changing it, but like I would be okay with 3, right? I feel like I could still have a solid franchise with a strong community, even if it was reduced to 3 keepers. But I'm curious, what other solutions people are able to suggest, come up with, thoughts, etc. But yeah. Do you want to move on to maybe some of the other tiers now that we've talked a good bit about Elite and some of the general CSC stuff? Not sure if maybe there's some trades that you've got on the top of your mind that might have happened recently or even in preseason.
Yeah, I mean, there was obviously the big slime trade. There was the
Mhm.
the Omega trade, like trade
Yo.
the farm, trade everything we have, give it all up. Give me
became-
Becco, give me Ween, give me. I don't even remember who else. I think there was one other guy. I don't know. But you traded your
Manifest,
entire future.
He gave me the Big Slime credit card, and I swiped.
Oh, it's
swiped
maxed
roll.
out. It's already maxed out. I
I
was about
have
to
no
file
more.
for
I'm
bankruptcy.
surprised. Yeah, it was maxed out, and then Becco became on the market, and I had to, find a way to max it out even harder. So, I am out of futures in almost like 2 tiers now. But
Jesus.
we
But
make
like,
it work.
but like, it's not the end of the world because if you traded the farm, now you just got to commit them to stay or convince them to stay. You know what I mean? You just have to like, because if you keep them around,
Like,
then
hey,
it
please
don't
don't
matter.
go to another team, thank you.
Obviously, it would suck like if they do leave because then you kind of just did it all for nothing. But that's kind of where you build that.
But yeah,
that
some
community.
That's
some
that part of the
context.
risk factor, baby.
Yeah, so for some context, Big Slime ended up in the off season. We ended up doing a large trade with Gas, where they put up their was it MVP? I don't know. He basically superstar player Ween. Ween has been a long time standing player for CSC and has put up incredible numbers season over season. He is a well established like captain and just frags. He's insane. He's really good at the game. And so seeing him up for trade was something that I feel I'm pretty okay to talk about. There was a good number of franchises that were very interested in him. And then obviously because of his history, he had a pretty high price tag to go with it. And so when I became GM of Big Slime this season, I saw that, and not having really anybody in my premier team yet, with most of the players having decided to not come back to CSC, decided to try and make a move on it and see if I could do something about it. And sure enough, after some tough negotiations, I traded the farm. I traded a lot of future picks. So when I go into season 14, a lot of those picks that I would have had now went over to Gas, and in exchange I got Ween and Pep in that trade, yeah, now after some more recent roster moves with Becco being available because of maybe Kiko, you can talk about the Becco experience on UPS. But after he got listed for trade, he was the Becco being the #1 overall pick in Premier in the draft. He was a DE this season.
Yeah.
He's been in CSC for a bit. He's played lots of 10-mans. Really positive guy. Highly regarded among a lot of the Prem players. And yeah, seeing him up, I think, was kind of a bit of a surprise. And we managed to somehow again max out our credit card a second time and pick him up with even more features. So not sure if. Kigo, you feel comfortable?
Yeah, I mean, I don't personally know much about Becco. I think I only spoke to him like once. As we all know, the premier players kind of stick to themselves and they do their own thing. And I think it was just like a general consensus of like, just there was like no chemistry amongst the team, like in general with everybody. I think they started like 0-2 maybe, or 1-3, something like that. So there was kind of, I think that, yeah, I mean, they're 1-3 right now. So I'm assuming they just, if I had to guess, like from, like, I mean, obviously it's from my franchise, or was, but I think it was just them trying to make a move just to do something, whether it was that he didn't mesh with the team or or whatnot. I know he had a couple rough games too. The first couple of games. I know I tuned into the one when they were on stream, and I think he was like 1-10. So I know he had a couple of rough games, and that might have been part of the reason. But other than that, I don't know anything else.
Yeah, I mean it happens, right? Sometimes
That's
you
just
just don't mesh
the way
with,
it is.
teammates. I don't know,
Yeah.
Clancy, if you have had that experience with anybody in particular.
Of teammates just not meshing. No, not really. I mean, AVI has been good to me, so I haven't really had anybody on my team or any of the teams that I know of that haven't. I've seen it with other teams in recruit tier, but not my team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What about you, Wilson? Do you have any nightmare or horror teammate stories?
This is your chance to call out Dior and that terroristic.
Bro, you're doing
putting
the
up.
nicest dude.
Hey, call him out
No,
right
man,
now.
I-
Live on
I-
air. Dior,
Get 'em.
Ovi, SJT, Starly. Hey, call him out. Let it sing.
Look,
Let
I
it
won't lie.
fly.
I I don't like the IGL role. Coming from 3,000 hours of solo queue, I don't like the IGL role because I'll make my own decisions. I do what I want. But hey, here's the turnaround. Props to Starly, man, because he plays the IGL role in a way where it's like you do what you think is best, just communicate it, and we'll play around that play, right? Play your game, and then
do your thing.
exactly, yeah. So I like opening duels. I like playing aggressive. So that sort of system, that kind of IGL, that's like you tell me what you want to do, and then we'll do that. So props to Starly, man. I mean, combines, shit. It was, I think in Elite, there was one dude who IGL'd the hell out of me, and I was crazy with it. I hate it. It's like combines, bro. I'm just going to do what I want to do and frag out. So that's the worst I got. But man, I've been having fun playing in the system, and I got a lot of freedom playing under Starly, so it's cool.
Yeah, no, I think that's the perfect example, actually, of kind of what I was talking about. There are some IGOs who are very micromanagey, and some people really like that. And then there are others that are a little bit more, play your style, and I think, works out for other people. And so maybe that's a case of the old Becca. You can see someone with really good stats and, pick them up and everything, but maybe just the vibes or styles just don't mesh very well. I think that's where GM cuts come into play. I think I kind of want to touch on this for any new people that might be watching. Whenever you do get cut and put into free agency, I think one of the things that really helps players that were got cut off a team because of external reason, like maybe not necessarily them as a player, but it could be anything from like MMR cap. Maybe they didn't fit with the team because of literal MMR, the salary costs or whatever, or maybe they already had an entry type player and said player was playing entry, although it was really well, right? There's just this role clash. There's a lot of different reasons as to why someone can get cut, even if they are a really good player or a really positive player. And that's where when a player does get cut, the GMs will submit a GM cut, essentially telling all the other, franchises, the GMs, kind of about that player. And so I think that's one of those things that, like, if you are a good person, right, if you are active, if you communicate well with your team captain, the leadership, as a new DE, is like, you will likely get put back onto another team or given another chance, at some point, because GMs will take note of that. Right. Yeah. Even if you didn't get to make it onto that first team, I think it's something that as long as you stick to it, you stay active, right, you have a really good shot.
Yeah.
That would break
Especially
my
if you're
heart
not,
playing onto a team, but then the MMR just not fitting in the right way.
Oh, yeah. I had to scare.
I have to say that, yeah, it's probably one of the most devastating reasons to have to cut someone, or I think second to maybe having to cut a player that you really like but just isn't performing as well is probably the worst. There's so many people that I just love talking to, playing with, hanging out with, and
And you can't keep them all, unfortunately.
yeah, only 5 people to a team, and so I like more than 5 people, but unfortunately it is what it is. And yeah, I think it's I think it's really difficult for all people around, but
yeah.
I have been fortunate enough to, you know, be professional and receive a lot of professional, you know, responses, criticism about it. And I hope that, you know, at least the majority of players that I've cut are, felt that they at least had a, you know, fair shot. So that's all I can really hope to do. But moving on, we can look at potentially some quick recruit power rankings, Clancy.
House was another trade too.
Oh yeah.
House-
Okay. Sorry, Clancy. We'll have to put you on
That was
hold.
one other trade too.
Oh,
While we're still on the topic of big trades, we're gonna jump over to Contender, look at some of their not power rankings standings. God damn it. House was one of the like top 4, I think, players drafted in Contender,
Yeah,
right?
something like that.
And yeah,
He's done really well. He has a 1.21 with 3 games played, and so yeah, I think it was kind of shocking to see them. He was traded for a 5th round pick.
yeah, I think that was the biggest, you know, news about the whole thing. Not so much even just like House leaving, because you see like, you know, big players jump from team to team every so often for like some of the reasons we were already talking about, like Becco. But it wasn't just the fact that a large name and, you know, potentially really powerful player just got traded to a team that was already doing really well, but on top of that, it was for such a cheap price.
Yeah.
Not yeah. Anyways.
Do you think that indicates a player asked trade, a requested trade? Or do we have any
it could have
inside
been.
info on this? 'Cause
Yeah.
it does seem weird, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And I would assume a 1.2 player would probably be the highest rated of their team, unless their team is doing absolutely insanely well.
I'm gonna go look into
unless they have a player that's just donking them, you know. Just
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he was the best rated player. Second best at a 1.16, so they're doing okay.
I mean, to me, that sounds like a player requested trade, because I've seen that happen in the lower tiers where it's just like
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not sure.
it could be for
otherwise
any
why
number
else.
of reasons, but I'm suspecting a player like they're just not meshing well and they're just like, I want out,
Yeah.
which is entirely possible.
Retweet.
I kind of did some digging into this topic, but in the end I'm honestly not really sure or what I should or shouldn't share, so I'm just gonna play it safe. And so yeah, I mean, it was an insane deal. I think, you know, kind of what some of the topics we had talked or reasons that we had talked about earlier, you know, play into this decision from ATL that ultimately, I mean, they're still 3-0, right? They played their 3rd match day without House, and you know, I mean, they still got a really good team with, like, you know, players like Rockin', I know, holding
I
down a
think they
pretty
have
insane rating. I'm not
Delusions
sure.
is another guy.
Yeah.
Or Delusional. I know that was one of the other like really good rated players on that team.
A DE that I definitely noticed when scouting Contender, and, you know, heard talks about from some of my scouts and stuff. So yeah, I mean, they already had a good team. I think House was just assumed to be kind of the icing on the cake there, but I, you know, would assume that some play style differences kind of, you know, caused that trade to happen. What's really interesting is what happened afterwards, and so I kind of want to, like, you know, lay out this story for you guys really quickly, where we have you know, the team that House got traded to, Hell, had a already what was considered pretty stacked roster with Nitro and a pretty notorious CSC yapper, accurate title, kind of leading the charge there, taking the captain IGL role. Really good player, has always had like phenomenal stats in Contender, subbing for multiple teams, has been, you know, in and out of FA, and so he and IGL for the H4K squad, Hacker Haven, currently in standings number 5, were scheduled to play match day 3, and I think there was a lot of banter in between the chats, and this was a, you know, 2 of the probably most active IGO captain, you know, powerhouse type teams planning to play against each other, with predictions even going in favor of Hell. There's been some predictions, you know, forms being sent out in the Contender chat, and, you know, getting upwards of like 20 responses. It's like there was, I think, a 60% chance or 60% prediction on Hell to win this match, and that was before the House trade. So essentially there was a lot of talks going on before this match ever even happened, and then the house trade happened, and then so Hell looked like even more of a super team, and everyone was betting against Icy, and he ended up winning. Hacker ended up beating Hell even after this super trade, and yeah, I don't. It's a very interesting little storyline that has already happened only on match day 3 between two teams that I think we're very looking forward to playing against each other, and I'm sure there are probably some feelings that happen during and after that match. So
Yeah, no, they were yapping in that tier chat all day. I seen them two arguing with each
we love
other,
the yapping.
like little like chihuahuas, just yipping at each other in the chat the entire day. Icy and Nitron.
yeah. So no, that was a good
That's
one. That was a
Nitron,
big
he's always
trade.
yapping.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see kind of where Hell is able to go after the house trade. Maybe it takes a game and they get a little bit more used to each other and things start looking.
Apparently they
up.
play AP next, who's 3-0 as well in contender. So
Ooh.
I've been betting on them.
so that'll be another good test then to see if they can figure it out.
Yeah,
Or if they just
another
traded for
another
Alex and done
well-known
like that.
IGL Sainted has put together. He helped AP see a lot of success last season. I know Sainted was kind of when I had first started. I think he was a DE the same season that I initially joined, maybe a little bit older than me in terms of like CSC age, but he has kind of sat in free agency for a little bit, and so I'm happy to see him as someone that I noticed and thought was a pretty good player on a steady team now, having been on AP for this is his second season now. And yeah, I think it was really cool to see him have a lot of success last season, and looks like on that same path this season. So yeah, that's probably a highlight match for sure. Hell versus AP. See if the house trade pays off there. Oh, and then also Rupert T-Blade. What team is he? Sav, right? How is Sav doing? 2-1. I called him in the last predictions that we did, I called him the donk of contender.
The donk of content, dude.
Yeah, I mean he was someone way up in the combine stats.
1.77 with 3 games.
Yes, dude.
Hey, yo.
1.77.
Those are donk ratings.
That it? Yeah, never mind. I take back my comment.
Oh, holy.
That is indeed donk rating.
Yeah, he was tearing it up in combines, and then proceeded to just is still on a tear so far.
Get this guy into Chally. Are you kidding me? What is this?
Numbers.
He's got a 2 average T-side rating. Oh my
He's
god.
Oh boy.
He's swinging.
Yo,
Golden
he don't-
W,
he
bro.
That
don't
is
count.
saying, my god.
But
Yo,
yeah.
he's only got a 36 heady though.
I
What's
know
this?
I
Is it
know a
Hopper?
number of franchises were definitely really interested in him. We did some Tin Mans with him, and so it was no surprise that he went early, and I don't think it's too big of a surprise that he's still holding these insane numbers, but definitely worth a shout out of some insane rating,
Donk
insane
ratings,
play.
dude.
And that's even with a loss. Sav still has
He's averaging 135 ADR.
my god.
Oh, that's disgusting.
Wow. And he's also got a 76% opening duel, so it's not even like he's baiting.
No,
He's got
stop.
a
You gotta stop now.
a 2.2 average death placement, and he's going in first, and he's still
Jeez.
he's just running in and killing him. That's crazy.
You got number one biggest fan Kigo here.
Yo, hey,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to go get an autograph from this man. Yo, what tier is he in? Contender?
Yeah.
I gotta go to contender chat.
Not for long. Not with those numbers. We'll see him. We'll see him up in Chally here soon. Maybe even elite. Well, some of the players from AP contender, I believe, got double promoted. Dior on your team. I'm pretty sure he played in contender last season.
Yeah, he did. That's why I made fun of him.
Oh wow.
What
Yeah.
a
He was in
noob.
contender.
Well, yeah.
What a
I'm
joke.
joking. I'm
He got
joking.
promoted to Shelly, and they force promoted him, I think, to elite.
No, man, Dior's great. I think a lot of his value comes from just his knowledge. Like he is like our go-to
Knowledge.
guy for Insta smokes for util. Like he's the man who just knows what's up. So Ancient, he knows the Insta smokes for red on Ancient. Like he'll spawn under the bridge, strafe out, and then do. I'm too lazy for this, but he puts in the hours to do them, and that in of itself just brings value. And he's also
Oh,
a
man,
fragger.
after
He's
my
just a
own
good player
heart.
too, of course.
Yeah.
A man after my own heart. I love you too.
I was learning some Mirage instant window smokes because I got a little bored. Thought, why not? Let's give it a shot. Yeah, I love me some instant smokes as much as the next
I
YouTube
love
person.
instant smokes.
Personally
I've
speaking,
learned all the instant smokes on Anubis, on T side Anubis for house. God, I love it.
Yo,
There you go.
Kono,
Those are nice
I
to know.
can't help but notice on this graphic we have up on the screen there is a sludge squad that is 0-3 with the worst round win percentage in the
okay,
tier.
okay.
Can you give me some insight on what's going on over there? Because that's you
Part
have
of that-
five
Part
persons
of that
promoted.
is solely my fault, all right? And I
Okay.
apologize so much to not only all the contender boys, but especially to Prison Sal, a current FA and contender. But there was a lot of trades, there was a lot of stuff, and Bix was, incredibly professional and sent me. He had planned out all 3 subs because we had Cool Kid, probably like our star rifler,
Match Day
one
ban.
of the biggest pickups that we had done in the off season for contender. Cool Kid has a 3 match day ban, and so he's been kind of sitting on the bench for now.
Oh my.
These first 3 days or first 3 match days, and we've had to get a sub for each one. Because we decided we wanted to still keep him, so we're just using FAs from now until his time expires. And
Yeah.
Bix, the captain of the team, sent me all 3 screenshots, really early on, like a week in advance. And I think, between all the mix-up and everything, essentially, I messed up on that
forgot.
last trade. Yeah, it's my fault. I'll take responsibility, right? As much as I can, cope about everything else, I messed up, and they had to play a 4v5. That team should very likely not be 0-3 if it weren't for the fact that they had to play a 4v5 for their match day 3, as well as just having subs. So I can defend them a little bit there, and take some of the heat on that one. But they'll have their time to shine.
Still.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I was just curious, just asking, instigating.
It's a good point. I'm glad that I got to let it be known they're gonna come back with a vengeance. But should we get into
Chat,
recruit
hit
now?
him with a keck W.
No, don't quote me.
Yeah, we could probably go to recruit. I think the other thing too, the only other thing I noticed too about some of the like new teams, the new franchises, DRG and DB, I do think that they've been struggling. I don't know for sure about all 3 of the tiers, but I don't know if that could be part of it in terms of like the 4 keeper limit and trying to introduce a new franchise, and how much of a struggle it can be to not only like convince players to come to your franchise as a brand new franchise, but yeah, like even in recruit 2 they're also 1 and 2. So I think that could be another argument, as like, I mean, we're seeing the new franchise struggle. Both of them, I believe, are struggling pretty hard in all their tiers.
I'm seeing one team that I really like up there.
Now, how the hell did that get up there? Who let that happen? Who let AVI at the top?
It's simple. When you throw grenades every round and get 200 util damage, game's kind of easy from that point onwards.
Okay, I have
it's
sick prediction. I have one thing that I don't feel like I got enough credit for personally, but I predicted Rift Raiders winning their second match day, which they did. After their first match day, they went 0-13. So they got absolutely stomped by Wet.
We had
predicted
2
them to win?
0
And I predicted them to win because I went back and I watched that demo, right? And Wet there's a whole like trail of events here. Wet DM'd me on the first match day, one of the guys on Wet, and basically I'd predicted against them, and he was like, "Yeah, I think you're wrong here." I was like, "Why do you think that?" And he's like, "We're pugging and blah blah blah, a bunch of different reasons." And I'm like, "Okay, I hear you. You reached out to me. I respect it. Sure, I'll predict it." And they go 13-0. They stomp, right? And I'm like, "Okay, these guys are pretty good." And I went back and watched the game, and watched the Rift Raiders, and they didn't do that bad. Like, for getting 13-0, there was a lot of rounds that were down to 1v1s. There was a lot of rounds that, really big rounds where just Wet just showed up. They threw a ton of nades. They had, like, a bunch of just moments where they were grouping, deathballing. And it's like, this doesn't even necessarily look entirely like a recruit team. And I'm like, if Rift Raiders, I'm sure, VOD review or potentially even looked at that even a little bit, right? They look like a team that had some structure and setup. I don't think that they're going to get, just rolled every single match day. So I'm going to, go against the grain here for a second and try and predict them to win and see if I can, if my analysis was correct, and sure enough it was. And then they turned around and lost match day 3, but you know, I'm really happy that they proved me right there, and I think that's an example of, like, you know, you can get 0-13, but that doesn't define the rest of your season.
I mean, yeah, their match day 3 wasn't against the easiest of opponents, so
Yeah, exactly.
you know, which is fair. I do want to talk about one player in recruit, and it's not any of my guys because that'd be kind of weird. Shane 216 on First Son
Even more of a
has
donk.
he's
A 1.83
he has an average
rating.
rating of 1.83, opening duel percentage of 82%.
He has a T rating
A T
average
rating
of 3.58.
3.58, dude. Talk about opening kills, dude. He just
Numbers?
W keys, I'm
Hello?
pretty sure.
What?
Hello? Yo, who put this guy down in recruit?
That's crazy.
I don't know. We're right behind him. It's fine.
When do you play them? Do you get to?
No, actually, not in the regular season. No,
Really?
I was thinking of a different team. I was thinking of Sav, who I think we play on Thursday, barring some rescheduling things going behind the scenes. But no, we don't play First Sun this season.
Damn.
I don't know, maybe playoffs, maybe finals. That'd be fun.
Let's see. I do know that there is actually one really easy highlight match here. I'm pretty sure it was ATL versus Sav, right? A little bit of history between Enders and then the I think he got taken out by a vehicle by a recruit spy or something like that. And
No, when he was drafted by Sav.
he got cut. That's what it was.
No, he didn't even get cut. He requested it. He requested a trade, and then they couldn't get the trade done, so they just cut him, and then ATL picked him up because he didn't want to be on Sav.
And
now
so
this is
I
the
do know
first
that there
time-
is the something that I heard, I think, in the weekly recruit talk, that Sav currently has not lost a single series.
A single series.
I think
yeah,
they lost
have
one
lost
map in a best of 3, but a single series in CS2
in CS2.
in CSC.
Yeah.
So
Last
starting
season,
back
they
from
went
last
10 and
season,
1.
yeah,
Yeah.
after we played
Last
the
season
one
they went.
game on CS:GO, because they lost the CS:GO game, right?
Mhm. They lost the CS:GO game. Yes.
And so since then they haven't lost a single game on CS2.
Yep.
or
No,
series.
they won. They got 10 and 1. Won the regular season tier. You know, the Governor's Cup, whatever you want to call it. And then turned around and got a chip. So. Yeah. No, they are still undefeated in CS2 so far.
So I know that that's
So far, we'll see match day 4.
and maybe I'll have to, like, you know, point to Crash or
5.
someone to really fully kind of talk about that storyline there. But I know the ATL game and Sav game is definitely one that's in contention for being streamed on the CSC stream, with hopefully him casting. But you know, it's probably the most highlighted match for recruit going into match day 4.
There's another storyline involving player transaction drama with my team, AVI, and the team we're about to face on Tuesday, Tadpole. Two of our players before, I think it was Prodigy Toast, who got promoted to Prospect. From what I understand, if he did not get promoted to Prospect, 2 of my players would have went to Frog. And then once they got promoted to Prospect, they turned around and came back to AVI.
Yeah.
And now we're about to face off against each other, and they are not very happy about that transaction. They still haven't. They've been yapping this entire weekend, which is fine. We'll find out what happens.
Oh my god, yeah. This is what I'm hoping to bring a little bit more of. Maybe especially next week, as the storylines continue to develop, we can really kind of go into them a little bit more, as well as, you know, maybe see them talked about on stream a bit.
I will say, yeah, it does feel like a much more of like a rivalry match, like a football derby. You know, if you're into soccer, football, or whatever, you know, you have
Wilson,
your rivalry game.
Does AP have? Do you know if you guys have a rival franchise?
No, I'm going off of Starly's personal rival, which is UPS. So I'm in my mind, UPS
That's just
is our
CSC's
rival.
rival.
I'm gonna say that's
That's kind of it.
You make a lot
Aside
of
from that,
haters.
there's been no mention.
get a lot of haters when you win all the time, you know.
That's true.
That's
That's
yeah, UPS are the Dodgers of CSC.
Yeah.
A lot of past glory and not many recent.
I know we
What?
have a lot of trade history with UPS, so you know we always look forward to those matches. Anytime UPS
Yeah.
versus Big Slime happens, it's our Super Bowl, you know.
Yeah. My Super Bowl just happened. Well, actually, I get back-to-back Super Bowls, bro. I got Big Slime last Thursday. I beat them, and now I get to fucking stomp Starly next week. Ooh, chills, bro. Chills.
Yeah. You have any thoughts? You have anything to share, Wilson?
Oh nah, bro. They played Overpass 3 games in a row.
Oh my!
I mean, come on. They barely winning on Overpass 3 games in a row against mid teams. Like,
Big Slime is
Jeez.
kind of mid.
There
Big
you
come
go.
Slime,
on. They
Gas-
got a real
Oh.
challenge this week. They haven't
Big
had a
Slime,
challenge yet.
Gas, and DRG. Mid.
Okay, we also had a sub
Mid.
situation. I'll accept it for now. Big Slime might have been a little mid, but you know we got K and Z coming back. Our subs did great. I love our subs, but yeah, you can never tell without having the full 5 just how strong a team is going to be.
Yeah.
That's true. Trying to work around a sub does seem like an exceptionally difficult thing. And being a sub also seems like pretty weird situation. Like we talked about, there are some subs that come in and just frag out, and I think you have to have quite the mental to be able to do that. Because personally, I would join a team as a sub, play match day, and be like, I'm gonna play like kind of a supporty. I'll fill. I'll do whatever you need me to do. And so
Yeah, it's
to
kind of
come
an
in and
impossible.
be like, I'm gonna drop 30 kills is crazy.
Yeah, I can't imagine like actually asking a sub to like, hey, we're gonna need you to carry this game, or our star fragger is out for the night, so you got to come in and drop 30 for us.
Yeah,
real quick.
coming kill.
But I guess there's also the fact that there's like no strings attached to it. It's like I'm just gonna hop on and play and play this. So you
Yeah.
know, there could
And
be
also when
different-
you're
yeah.
when you're an FA, you're kind of looking to like prove your spot. It's a bit different for perma FAs because they're not gonna get signed, as per being a permanent free agent. But if you're just a normal free agent, you're kind of like, I gotta show up and perform and prove I belong on a team, prove that I can aim my mouse at somebody's head 30 times a match.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think interesting because you can only have only one person on the team can like frag out. There's only so many kills on the map to get, so
Yeah, I'm gonna get all of them. 50
I think
kills.
I think like just wrapping back on like the whole like kind of rivalry thing, like how like Wilson said, well, UPS at the moment, right? Just because of like Starly's beliefs. I think that's the other thing that I think I genuinely, that's one of the things for me that keeps me coming back to CSC or playing CSC is like the kind of like not only like the friends, right, and like the teammates you meet and play with, and like even the guys that I've been playing with now for 2 seasons and stuff, and Cloud for 3 seasons, but like Starly. I met Starly last season. He was a D. He was brand new to CSC. I scouted him in combines. I really liked him. Unfortunately, he was an IGL, and so like I wasn't gonna draft him because I'm an IGL, so I didn't want him because of that. But like even just me scouting him and pugging with him a couple times, and like I kind of became buddies with him, buddy, and then now we banter once in a while in our DMs about stuff, or like now I play him because he also got promoted to elites, and I get to play him, and it's just like it's stuff like that I absolutely love. Or like the history between like obviously like Wilson, you haven't experienced this yet because like you're so new, but even like me being traded last season from Big Slime to UPS, like he said, Big Slime games are always like, to me, they mean a little bit more, and like some people don't care, like it's a for fun league, who gives a crap, like, but to me, it does mean more, like it's more fun to me. I have more like on the line per se in a for fun league that has nothing on the line. You could go out and lose every single game. It's not like you're gonna lose money or lose anything other than the time you put into the match.
You're not gonna lose sponsorships or anything.
Yeah, but it's just it's the fun. It's something that gives it the games just that enough meaning to actually care or want to get better at the game or want to like do better, And I absolutely love that. And that goes for me like almost every franchise. That was my favorite thing about Challenger last season is I made it my mission to piss off at least one person on every single team, so I could go into every single match and be like, dude, I'm gonna shit on Fuffy on AVI this game. Like what I mean?
Hey, that's my dog.
Fuffy,
Hold up.
yeah, just Fuffy's like somebody else on top of my head, but like just every single team, like not necessarily making an enemy, but friendly banter and talk your shit and whatever, and then like have that reason to want to go into the match.
Zim.
And like Zim, yeah, anybody. And like to go into that match and be like, yo, we're gonna go out there and we're gonna win. I cannot stand losing to this guy. We're gonna win. So I think that's something cool too. Like if you do play more seasons, like Wilson specifically, like you'll start to see that more and more. You know what I mean? Where you'll meet those people and kind of build those relationships per se. Where then you kind of get to experience that more and more. I think that's my favorite part of CSC easily.
Honestly,
Absolutely,
the whole AVI roster, the whole AVI Chally roster.
Yeah.
Man, I love all them to
my
death.
boys,
I feel the
man.
same way.
Yeah, like there was just so many like funny things like that happened in Chally last season. Like I remember it was ACA beat AVI, and the one guy raises chickens in his house. He had like little chicks, and behind him he grabbed like 4 of them and he was holding them in his palms. And he's like, "Yo, I got the whole AVI roster right here in my hand.
God.
I just beat them, and he's got like 5 chickens. He's holding them. I just stomped them in the playoffs, and I'm like." This man's he's got the whole AVI roster held captive in his basement right now. Like what?
Yeah,
He
and
was
then,
Yeah,
screen
no, it's-
cheating, dude. He was
it's
looking
stuff
at
like
their
that
screens.
It's just like super fun, and it makes it like I'm a very competitive player, so it's like stuff like that in a casual for fun league just makes it like that extra side of the competitive, you know?
for sure. I think we're gonna try and. I know we started a bit late, but I still kind of want to try and stay to the similar schedule, and so we're gonna probably wrap up here with I think Prospect and Challenger, right?
Yep.
The
Yeah,
last
those
two.
are the last 2 we haven't talked about.
So
Are we going to Prospect first, then Chally?
yeah, let's do it that way.
Just gonna go upwards.
What's been happening in Prospect? Any of you guys know?
Dude.
Where are my boys?
I'm sorry. I'll be right back. 2
Go
minutes.
for it.
That's fine.
Yep, you good.
Are there still people in Prospect? Are there Prospect players? Do we have Prospect here? Who's on the top?
It doesn't feel like it sometimes.
Do you have the thing?
The
The whatever it's called? The ranking?
I do. I was trying to turn off
Or
this
the
camera.
Eventually.
standings?
I'm a little behind. I'll get there soon.
Soon, too.
Yeah, no. I mean, I don't know. In terms of Prospect, I don't really know much about like players just because I don't really associate with them gremlins down there. You know what I'm saying? I'm not really
Gremlins.
aware of them.
Especially now that 5s in person are gone from Prospect.
Yeah, those are the only guys that kind of.
I mean, to be honest, I think all
good.
the Gremlins got moved up to contender. Here we go. Okay. Prospect standings. 18 teams. ACA. Ooh, okay. Yeah, so I have apparently
So-
been a little bit of an ACA hater recently, and I'm kind of eating dirt because of it, because they are 3-0 and they are stomping.
Bull womp.
So yeah, no, I think
still
ACA.
an ACA
I'll have to, I'll have to pull up there. No, I'm still a cow hater. Sans, well, actually, I can't be because Sans proved me wrong, and I bet on him. I'm pretty sure, and he went ahead and got that win. But yeah, I think that was one of those surprising teams that I wasn't expecting or ready for them to just like come out of the gate swinging 3-0, but they have been. And then yeah, I want to look at specifically the ACA roster because I'm assuming that, you know, kind of talking about the the DE keeper bias that I'd mentioned earlier. Like whenever I don't recognize names on a roster, unless I've, you know, gone out and kind of tried to talk to them, which I have for a handful of teams on a handful of, you know, different tiers, I don't really know what to expect. So whenever I see that they're playing against maybe you know, the what's a good one, like the OS prospect team, right? And then I recognize a couple more of those names, like 69 Shades of Alpha, who I saw a lot in the combines going off, and I had a lot of faith in this guy to like perform well, and he has been. I think he's like #1, right, on the leading stats for prospect. Yeah, it's like I just kind of automatically bet for a team like that because it's just like a little bit of that name recognition sake thing. But no, I mean they've been doing good, like, you know, proving me wrong, making sure that I see it after their match days, pinging me in the tier chat. So I respect
The ACA
it.
guys?
Yeah, it's Colin, Dimitri, Kaiser, Box, and KG. Hopefully I didn't mispronounce any of those. But yeah, they took down LEC. They took down my own team, Big Slime, and then the Sentinels.
I'm back now. Sorry.
Oh,
It's all good.
There he is.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I think I think prospect is kind of like, I mean, it's similar to contender in terms of one of the biggest tiers, one of the tiers that have like the most amount of like people that want to improve or want to get better, or like, dude, the UPS prospect team, those dudes are in the VC every night until like, I'm not even kidding you, 2 in the morning. They're actual, like, I wonder if some of them have jobs sometimes, because they're like, I'm a grinder and I will be on and playing until late in the night, and I'll see them in there at 2 in the morning. 4 of them will all still be up playing. And I mean, they're 3-0. You know what I'm saying? We run prospects,
Yeah.
so I'm with it.
That's what it's about.
But yeah, no, I think it is cool to see like how much prospect, contender, Chally, even recruit to like the lower 4 tiers actually like care to get better. And as I've moved up the tiers, I hate it because I see myself going higher and higher, and the people just stop caring the higher you go. Like they care less and less. It's
Yeah, they're like
tragic.
ESCA time.
Yeah, no, literally, that's like what most. I mean, all the Prem teams, that's all they do, and then even majority of elite players, they're all in ESCA one way or another.
Yourself included.
Myself included, yes.
The
You actually.
upsetty spaghetti ESCA team.
Yep.
Garbage.
7-3, something slight. But yeah, no, I don't know. Prospect's an interesting one. I especially because that was one of the tiers of prospect, recruit, and contender. They got the 2 new franchises, so I was really curious to see how the new franchises would do, as well as like the YC rebrand, because I think YC, when they rebranded to DRG, they, I believe, lost maybe not all of their players, but I think they lost a lot of players in terms of kind of like that. Like, I know Sharpie was just somebody that I knew personally that left just because I don't think he wanted to be a part of the rebrand kind of deal. So I think I was curious to see how those teams would end up actually doing.
I remember it was like a different name, and then they completely switched up. It was something else. It wasn't
Yeah,
DRG.
that was when it went to DOA. That was
Yeah.
a whole nother off-season incident with Chels and a GM and whatnot. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was never able to actually get the tier list, but while I have a couple of the logos up here on this graphic, can you give me your favorite, as non-biased as possible, right? Okay, let's just take AP out of the equation. What are your favorite? I'll even swap it to the contender one again, so that way you can see all the logos, as tiny as they are. Wilson, I need to know who has the best logos in CSC. Give me a couple that stand out.
Oh man, okay. I don't want to, but I gotta give UPS props. Their logo
Not
slaps.
the spaghetti, man.
I think it's pretty fire. Like it's a silly, brand and team, but the logo is tough. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know a lot of the logos. I don't know what team they're associated with, so I'll just go off of like.
You can pick the number, and how about that?
Yeah,
See it on there.
number 10, the Watchers. I low-key really like that one. I like more kind of intricate, weird ones. I think that one's kind of cool.
The Abyss. It's the Abyss Walker.
Shoving it in the camera.
Also, dude, I like Cow. I think Cow's branding and logo design is also fire.
Okay.
Yeah, if only their teams were as good as their logo.
Oh my goodness.
I would say, honestly, in terms of like actually like a sports team, AV is probably the best. Like that one, I think looks the most professional and like clean, and like that's like a real team right there.
Which one?
AV.
AVI.
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 Oh, yeah. Yeah, the hawk logo. It makes sense.
Yeah.
I can see that.
Those would be my
Right.
obviously with the bias. AP on top. I'm also a Las Vegas Raiders fan,
bro.
so it like
Oh, okay.
Skull and Bones. I'm there, bro. It's fire.
Yeah. No, I have to agree. Especially the Abyss Walkers one is a new franchise. The number 10, the Watchers. So that was an expansion one. Just became a part of CSC, and yeah, I think they got a
I
pretty
do
cool
like
one.
their logo. It is a pretty clean logo.
One that I have to give shout out to though, aside from my own, that you didn't mention is the Decibel Demons, or the actual franchise Dead Beats. I think that skull going into the was it like a galaxy? I think that one's really cool. It's really hard to see,
that
very
one is
tiny.
cool as well.
I really wish I could have brought up the tier list. We could have gone through all of them, but also we've got to move on to our last tier, Chally, right? So
God, I hate those guys.
My Chobits.
I hate the Chally guys.
you wish you were back in Chally.
I do, low key. I miss my Tally guys.
But yeah, Chally. I mean, this is, I guess, technically my specialty, my expertise. Just got moved up to Chally as well with a slew of other, contender players that I got to play with last season. So it's exciting seeing some old faces, some new faces. But yeah, AVI, Diviners, and Nan. AVI, Hell, and Nan leading the standings, not power rankings, standings so far.
It's my guys, my dogs, fellow 3-0 enjoyers.
I don't know. I think the rankings will shake up a lot. I feel like sometimes you tend to see the same teams like stay where they are, you know what I mean? Like they kind of carry throughout the season. I don't think Hell or AVI are legit. I think they're both frauds, and I think they were both
no.
I think Zim.
Anymore.
I don't
Hold
think
on.
Zim's.
Last time
How do I
called
server
someone
mute somebody?
last time I called someone a fraud, I still haven't heard the end of it, so I'd be careful.
I think they're both frauds, and I would say it confidently. I think Zim will not be consistent. I think he's too inconsistent to help AVI.
Right.
I think same with Fuffy, and when you have two people that are too
not
inconsistent,
Fluffy.
Oh, you can't say that about Fuffy.
they're-
My God.
hey,
Bro, the
Fuffy is
round
also-
diff on AVI is convincing me though. 6 average
Bruh.
round diff for every match. That's pretty wild.
Oh, what's
As a
crazy
champion.
too?
Hitting them
the-
with the bro.
What was the most recent match they played too? That one
As
was
a player last season, and knowing the lore in Fuffy, Fuffy is a consistent playoff choker. I don't think ever makes it through it all. So
bro. UPS just lost to Fuffy, and they had 2 subs. What do you mean?
No, whoa. Hold on. Listen,
Sit.
I never said that UPS was
Sit.
better. I didn't say that. I just think that AVI is fraudulent. I think they have too many inconsistent
SIT.
players, and I think they rely on AM going nuclear. And if AM doesn't go nuclear, I think they're gonna choke in the playoffs like they always do.
Am does have a 1.46 right
And I
now.
think Hell's full of a bunch of contender frauds too. You got the whole
Ain't no way,
contender core.
dude.
They're trying to role play as me and the elite squad at UPS, and they're taking their whole core from contender up to Chally. I think Zim, Clouds, Rizu. I think those guys will crumble too. I think they'll get caught up later on.
Ain't no way he's talking about.
See, I would have to
team
like
frauds, bro.
try and disagree with you, but to be honest, the more frauds there are at the top is the better chance that the Mug Menaces come rising back up.
You can't say fraud, dude. 18 round diff.
They'll get exposed eventually.
up.
3 match
They'll
day.
get
We've still
exposed
got a
eventually.
whole other half of the season to explore. Maybe there's some changes, maybe some shakeups.
All right, Fuffy, you know what to do.
The other thing
Don't
too is
choke.
playoffs bring a whole
That's
different
one.
dynamic. Playoffs are completely different. There's so many teams that you see that are best of 1 Andes, and then you get them into a best of 3, and it's just like night and day difference. And I think Fuffy is one of those players.
Big
I don't think he
slime.
has it for a best of 3.
Listen, best of 3s are just 3 best of 1s. It's fine.
There you go.
That is one way to look at it. That is one way to look at it. Yeah. You might have to explain that one to Fuffy. Ugh.
Dude, I wish someone explained that to us.
Fuffy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The big
We
slime.
scrimmed our Chally boys, the Scallywags, and I gotta say they're pretty legit, man. They got some gamers. Grizz especially, he's a gamer. And
Grizz
then
is good.
I think it's Nike 23 or N.
Yeah.
One of those. He can
know who
frag,
you're
bro.
talking about.
So I wouldn't be surprised to see them shoot up off the backs of them two, because
I'll
they're
say it's interesting that they're
they're nice.
1 and 2 so far. When I also thought that they were a pretty stacked roster. I think I predicted them a handful of times, and they just haven't quite found that success yet.
maybe a little more meshing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think that's the other
difference
reason
of a
why
few
I'm.
rounds. Yeah.
That's the other thing why too I'm not scared to call out some of these teams early on, because there's so many teams that dude, I'd say the UPS elite team, we could be fraudulent because we're beating teams, but we're not stomping teams like I personally think we should be, just because we've been playing together. And I think a lot of these teams, as you see some of these guys get more cohesion and play together more, you can see the standings change. You know what I mean? If all of a sudden Sav, they start playing together more, they all of a sudden they find that rhythm of how to play together compared to a team like AVI that maybe figured it out sooner, whether they pug more or I don't even know who did AVI keep from their previous season. I know Fuffy, and that's the only one that I know for sure that they kept. Did they
Well, they
keep anybody else?
I actually don't know.
Because I don't remember. I didn't really. pay
Fuffy,
attention to
Am,
the Charlie Rock.
Luke, Zim.
Yeah, no, I think think they drafted all people other than Fuffy. Fuffy and Cam. Cam's the other
Cam,
one. Fuffy
Cam.
and
I
Cam
knew
are
there
the
was
other
one.
two.
It was Cam.
That's my boy.
Because Zim
That's the
got
two they
traded.
kept, and the
Luke
rest
was
are new.
DE, and Am was also a FA pickup.
Yeah. So I don't know.
I'm saying 13-5 with a sub. I'm just
Who subbed for them?
Loom. Lum.
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 Wait, really?
Lum.
It was Lum?
Lum.
Loom.
Yeah.
Lum. Yeah.
13 frags.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, it's all coming
That's my
together.
boy. That's my boy. He had to go
Yeah.
PFA this season, but Lum was a homie.
I think there will be a lot of changes too, and specifically Charlie. I've already talked to a couple people that I'm not gonna name names that are upset with their team, upset with the performance, upset with how the other like you get like kind of
So your team.
similar situations that like I was in where you kind of get that like people who want to grind but they're on a team where they don't have a team of grinders, right? So like you get a team where it's 3 guys that they just want to show up, they want to pug match day, and then you get 2 guys that are like I want to grind, I want to pug, I want to like practice, have pistol strats, like whatever it be, where you like have a defined like game.
Yeah, that's always
And-
frustrating.
And I
'Cause I'm
think
a
there will be
grinder.
multiple teams that make like relatively like big changes. I'll say like in terms of cutting or trading multiple people,
Mhm.
especially towards the bottom. Like that Muck Menace team, they might have to cut Redeemed. That guy's been slacking a little bit. That Jordan fella might have to cut him.
Redeemed. Your name's on the chopping
But-
block.
But yeah, no, I
On
don't
the
know.
trade block, man.
I think there's a lot of really good players in Charlie too, like because there were a lot that got moved up last season to
Mhm.
elite because of how much of a shortage there was in elite. They like moved up a huge portion of like Charlie players that like a lot of people didn't think should have been moved up, if that makes sense, or like not necessarily shouldn't have been, but like weren't necessarily deserving of it. Like they had like a 1 rating or something. Like me, I had a 1 rating, I got moved to elite. Like stuff like that where they didn't show out, they didn't go crazy, but they got moved up. And I think there's still like a lot of really good players in Chally that maybe not necessarily like elite deserving yet, just because they haven't played a full season in Chally, but are still like very good players. I mean, we see Am's got a 1.46 on 3 games. Ernesto's got a 1.42 on 3 games. Sage has got a 1.4 on 3 games. I don't know what happened to Sage in the offseason. Sage started eating his Wheaties and went absolutely nuclear this season from last season. Bro was eating his Wheaties before his match days now. Swayze, I like the return of Swayze. Swayze got picked up midway through last season, and he kind of struggled. He did relatively
Yeah, this
bad.
this list of names is definitely
One banana
not what I was
per match
expecting.
day.
Yeah,
I-
like Swayze did
That's the
relatively
secret.
bad last season, and for what I expected of him, and now this season he's got a 1.4 almost.
A
He's
lot
on
of
the
people
top
on
of
the
leaderboard.
come up. I even have to. I hope this doesn't come back to bite me in the ass. But
gonna.
a DE who's on cow, number leading 8, right? I think I had like watched him in combines, and I didn't, really. I use this word carefully. I called him like a fraud, right? I didn't think that he was, gonna do that well in the regular season. And seeing him like pop off right now, it's like obviously I'm happy for the guy that he's found success and challenger. But yeah, seeing that name up there, even our own on Muck Menace's JaVale, the IGL warlord, just absolutely stomping in some of our games. I mean, we're 1-2 right now, and I've had not the best of score lines, and even still, this guy is stepped it up for our team in particular, and just like gone nuclear. So yeah, I have to hard agree with you and say these top 10 names are definitely not names that I were expecting, but at the same time, I'm not upset about it. I'm happy to see a lot of these people that I know, and
like different names. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like
yeah.
different people at the top compared to last season.
which makes you excited for the challenger season. I think there's going to be a lot of shake up and a lot of like, upsets. And I don't think there's going to be like a dominant team up at the top the whole time. I think it's going to be just a slugfest the whole season, which is pretty exciting, I think.
Yeah. No, I don't know. There's a lot of names still that like are new. I mean,
Mhm.
even
Wow,
outside
yeah,
of the
and-
top 10, like once you look at like just the whole leaderboard in general, like, and I don't know if they're just all DEs or if these were people that got moved up from contender. I know a few of them are just because I recognize their names, but there's a lot of contender players that are doing relatively well. You know what I mean? Like you get guys like Grizz or Zim, that got promoted, and that are I mean not like even crazy, but like even Zim or Grizz, I mean, they have a 107. Like that's still very good as like a contender player promoted to Chally, and like they're finding their groove or they're finding their path. I mean, I called them frauds, but even like Clouds on Hell, like he's got a 1.12. Rizu's got a 1.18 while IGLing that team. Like, so there's a lot of like good players that have come up through the tiers, which is another cool thing to see. You know, see a contender player come up and still do well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, as we're nearing the end of our time here on stream, is there anything else that we want to kind of end off on? You know, anything especially for like Wilson as a, you know, our special guest of the first episode and you know, first season in CSC.
For me, man, it's been great. I'm having a great time. I'm excited to build, you know, develop more friendships, relationships, nemesis,
Nemesi.
rivalries, you know. So I'm in it, bro. I'm having a great time. Everybody's been super polite, super fun. So
Yeah,
it's awesome, dude. I'm happy to be here.
it was awesome having you on here. Do you want to you know, plug some of your own like channels?
Yeah, sure. So I make educational YouTube content. My channel is Wilson CS2. I actually have a new video today about Game Sense, so you can
I
go
watched
check
it.
that out.
I watched it before.
Really?
This one.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was going to watch it, but I got distracted trying to.
I watched it an hour after it released. I was in the shower.
Oh man, thanks, man. Thanks for watching it. And then I stream on YouTube too. I don't stream on Twitch. I stream on YouTube. So sub on YouTube, and then you'll get the streams in your feed. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, his YouTube channel is linked in the chat for anyone wondering, and we'll link it in the description when this inevitably.
You think you're gonna make
YouTube
top
video.
1,000 eventually?
I will. My solo queue grind to the top 1,000 premiere is not going to be stopped by cheaters. Not going to be stopped by my own abilities. I'll make it one day.
Oh, we'd love to hear it.
And then I have to quickly shout out the weekly drop. If you are interested in becoming a guest in a future episode, if you are interested in giving us any feedback, or even if you have any information or a story that you would like us to cover, there will be several links in the description here in a second as well that you can go and check out. Just general forms for, you know, any purposes, anything that you know want, any changes, any suggestions, anything like that. But yeah, with that being said, anything else? Anything that I'm missing?
Make sure to fill it out if you want to come on here and flame me live in the VC instead of having to try to type to me in the chat the entire time. Any of you.
Please.
I think that's about it.
It's great content. We love content here.
Yeah, we need more clips for the YouTube channel. We need more people to see the Twitter, all of that stuff. Follow the CSC Twitter. Check out Wilson. Yeah. That's all that I have. So without further ado, thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you hopefully next week back here, same time. Bye, everybody.